In the bustling corridors of the United Nations Space Command headquarters on Earth, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation and tension. Admiral Harrow, a seasoned veteran of space conflicts, stood at the forefront of the assembly room, facing a diverse audience of diplomats from across the galaxy. Today's meeting was critical. The room was a mosaic of various interstellar representatives, all waiting to hear Earth's stance. The issue at hand was grave. The Zetans, a formidable alien race from the Zeta Reticuli star system, had violated interstellar treaties by mining on one of humanity's protected moons. The act was not just a breach of legal boundaries, but a direct provocation, testing Earth's patience and its readiness to defend its sovereign territories. Admiral Harrow stepped up to the podium, his expression stern, reflecting the gravity of the situation. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice echoing through the silent hall, "we stand today not just to address a simple treaty violation, but to confront a deliberate challenge to our sovereignty and a disregard for our laws." The room remained silent, the tension palpable as every word hung heavily in the air. Harrow continued, "The actions of the Zetan Confederacy on Lunar Site Delta are not only unlawful, but also an affront to the cooperative spirit this council strives to uphold. We have shown great restraint and patience in the hope of peaceful coexistence, but let it be clear, this transgression will not be overlooked." Harrow paused, allowing his words to resonate with the audience. His next words were chosen with deliberate precision, meant to convey the seriousness of Earth's stance. "Let this be a warning to all who wish to test our resolve. Humanity is committed to peace, but make no mistake, we are prepared to defend our interests vigorously. The Zetans' unauthorized activities must cease immediately, and they must vacate the site without condition." The Admiral's gaze swept across the room, meeting the eyes of the Zetan delegates, who appeared visibly unsettled by the firmness of his stance. "We will engage diplomatically to resolve this issue," Harrow concluded. "But should our demands not be met, be assured that our next steps will reflect the severity of your actions." As the meeting adjourned, the room buzzed with whispered conversations and speculative thoughts. Earth had laid down its position unequivocally. There would be no forgiveness for further defiance. Admiral Harrow left the podium, his message clear and his resolve unwavering, ready to take whatever steps were necessary to safeguard humanity's interests in the vast expanse of space. Despite the stern warning delivered by Admiral Harrow, the Zetan authorities chose a path of defiance, continuing their covert operations on the moon. Under the cover of darkness, their advanced mining ships descended on Lunar Site Delta, their drills piercing the silent surface to extract precious helium-3, a resource crucial for their energy needs but restricted under galactic treaties due to its location on a human-protected celestial body. In the depths of the moon, far below the surface where no human had set foot, the Zetans' relentless mining activities stumbled upon something unexpected. The ground shook violently as their machines clanked against an anomaly, an object unlike any rock or mineral embedded deep within the crust. It was an ancient artifact, metallic and geometrically perfect, pulsating with a faint, otherworldly glow. The discovery halted the Zetan operation. Curiosity overcame protocol, and they initiated a closer examination of the artifact. Their instruments could not identify its composition or origin, suggesting it was not just ancient, but alien to anything previously catalogued in human or Zetan archives. Back on Earth, Admiral Harrow received the first reports of continued Zetan activity. His frustration was palpable as he convened an emergency meeting with his top aides and military strategists. "They've ignored our warning," he stated grimly. "It's clear that diplomatic measures are insufficient. We need to prepare for a show of force to reassert our control over the site and ensure compliance." As Earth readied its response, the situation on the moon escalated rapidly. The Zetans, in their fervor to understand the newly discovered artifact, inadvertently triggered its mechanism. A deep, resonant hum began to emanate from the artifact, growing louder and more structured. It wasn't just noise, it was a signal broadcasting into the depths of space. The vibrations from the artifact grew stronger, causing further destabilization of the lunar surface. Cracks formed, and rocks shifted, revealing more of the artifact's structure, a massive, circular device, seemingly part machine, part sculpture, etched with symbols that glimmered with a phosphorescent light. Admiral Harrow was updated on the situation. The artifact was now active and its purposes unknown, but potentially catastrophic. The stakes had risen, not just for humanity and the Zetans, but possibly for the entire solar system. Harrow made the decision to deploy a specialized team to the moon, comprising scientists and soldiers tasked with securing the site and deactivating the artifact before it could fulfill whatever function it was designed for. As the team prepared for departure, Earth's greatest minds worked tirelessly to decipher the signals being emitted by the artifact. Every available piece of data was analyzed, every possible scenario simulated. The world watched and waited, aware that the outcome of this mission could alter the course of human history. Meanwhile, the Zetans, realizing the potential danger of what they had awakened, sent an urgent communication to Admiral Harrow. They offered their cooperation, claiming that the artifact was beyond their understanding and control. It was a desperate bid for a joint effort, driven by the fear of unleashing an uncontrollable force upon themselves and others. Admiral Harrow, though skeptical of zetan motives, understood the necessity of collaboration in the face of such an unprecedented threat. As Earth's fleet set course for the moon, a tense alliance formed between humanity and the Zetans, united by the common goal of containing whatever Pandora's box they had jointly opened on Lunar Site Delta. The revelation of the ancient artifact on the moon, now humming with unknown potential, cast a shadow over Earth's strategic command. Admiral John Harrow faced the daunting task of not just confronting the Zetans, but also dealing with a potentially catastrophic alien technology. In the war room of the United Nations Space Command, the atmosphere was charged as plans were laid out and alliances forged. Harrow understood that this was not just a military mission. It required a delicate blend of scientific inquiry and brute force. He reached out to the best minds across the globe, assembling a team that included top physicists, engineers, and historians, alongside a tactical squad trained for extraterrestrial missions. "We're not just going to shut down a rogue operation," he announced to his newly formed task force. "We may well be deciding the fate of our planet." The assembly was a mix of nervousness and determination. Dr. Elliot Reed, a renowned astrophysicist, briefed the team on the possible origins of the artifact based on the initial data. This device, whatever its purpose, is clearly engineered by a civilization far more advanced than ours or the Zetans. Its energy emissions alone suggest capabilities that we can't fully comprehend yet. Meanwhile, military preparations were underway. Earth's response fleet was mobilized, comprising both aerial combat units and ground forces equipped with the latest in warfare technology. The fleet included specialized spacecraft capable of both combat and rapid evacuation should the need arise. Each unit was briefed thoroughly, understanding that their role was part of a larger strategy involving both diplomacy and defense. The global response was surprisingly unified. Nations that had previously competed for space resources now shared a common threat. This unity was reflected in the diverse composition of Harrow's team, which included representatives from multiple countries, each bringing their expertise to the table. The world watched as this unprecedented coalition of military and scientific talent prepared to confront what could be humanity's greatest challenge. In parallel, diplomatic channels buzzed with activity. Harrow, leveraging the urgent situation, managed to secure tentative peace talks with the Zetan diplomats. The Zetans, equally alarmed by the artifact's activation, agreed to a temporary ceasefire and pledged support for the human-led intervention. This uneasy alliance was broadcasted as a beacon of hope and cooperation, though many remained skeptical of the Zetans' sudden shift in stance. As the fleet neared the moon, the gravity of the situation settled in. Each member of the team was aware of the dual threats, the possibility of a Zetan double-cross, and the unpredictable nature of the alien artifact. Dr. Reed, tasked with leading the scientific inquiry, equipped his team with custom-built instruments designed to interact safely with the artifact. "Our goal is to deactivate or control the device without triggering any potential defense mechanisms it may have," he explained. "This is as much about archaeology as it is about bomb disposal." Admiral Harrow's leadership was pivotal. His commands were clear, and his presence reassuring. As they approached the lunar surface, he addressed the team one final time. "Today, we're not just representatives of our respective nations or humanity. We are custodians of Earth's future. Let's ensure that future is secure." With the world's hopes resting on their shoulders, the team landed on the moon, ready to face whatever secrets lay buried beneath its dusty surface. The mission was clear, but the outcomes were anything but certain. As Earth's fleet approached the moon, tension escalated, not just from the imminent threat of the mysterious artifact, but from the unpredictable nature of their temporary allies, the Zetans. Admiral John Harrow, well aware of the delicacy of the situation, commanded his forces with a blend of strategic foresight and cautious optimism. The human fleet, an imposing collection of battle cruisers, support vessels, and nimble fighter craft, established a perimeter around Lunar Site Delta. Their primary objective was to secure the area, providing a safe zone for Dr. Elliot Reed and his team to investigate the artifact. However, before the scientists could begin their work, the first signs of trouble emerged. Not from the artifact, but from the Zetan forces. Unexpectedly, a Zetan fleet appeared from the dark side of the moon, their intentions unclear. Initially, they seemed to align with the agreed terms of the ceasefire. But soon, a small contingent broke formation, heading straight for the excavation site. Admiral Harrow, sensing a potential betrayal, issued a stern warning through open channels. Zetan commanders, steer your ships away from the Delta site immediately. This is your final warning. The rogue Zetan squadron, however, did not comply. Instead, they accelerated their approach, weapons charging visibly. It became apparent that a faction within the Zetan forces had decided to seize the artifact for themselves, likely believing it could tip the balance of power in their favor. With no time left for diplomacy, Harrow gave the order that everyone had been dreading yet preparing for. Engage the hostile targets with minimal force required to push them back. Protect the site and our personnel at all costs. The skies above the moon lit up with the silent flashes of energy weapons and the maneuvers of spacecraft. The ensuing skirmish was intense and chaotic. Human pilots, trained for just such a scenario, performed with disciplined precision. Their ships darted through the blackness, exchanging fire with the Zetan renegades. Each explosion of a Zetan ship served as a grim reminder of the fragile state of interstellar relations. Amidst the battle, Dr. Reed and his team landed near the artifact, their mission unchanged. They began their preliminary assessments under the protective cover of their military escorts. As they worked, the ground forces secured a wider perimeter, repelling smaller Zetan ground units that had landed in an attempt to flank the human positions. The battle reached a critical point when a Zetan cruiser, larger than the rest, made a daring move to break through the Earth's defensive line. Its weapons were more powerful, its shields stronger. Admiral Harrow, from his command ship, coordinated a response that would utilize both the tactical acumen of his fleet and the technological advantages Earth had developed for such encounters. Strategically, Harrow directed two of his most agile destroyers to flank the Zetan cruiser, while a barrage of coordinated fire from smaller fighters softened its shields. Just as the cruiser's defenses faltered, a specially equipped torpedo, designed to disable electronic systems without destroying the ship, was launched into the heart of the Zetan vessel, bringing it to a sudden, harmless halt. The successful neutralization of the Zetan threat allowed Earth's forces to regain control of the situation. With the rogue elements of the Zetan fleet either disabled or retreating, Admiral Harrow's immediate concern returned to the artifact. Dr. Reed's preliminary report suggested that the artifact was not just a relic, but potentially a device with capabilities beyond their current understanding, possibly even a beacon or a weapon. With the battle won, but the war far from over, Admiral Harrow prepared for the next phase of the mission. The artifact, now stable but still enigmatic, needed further investigation. The Admiral knew that the answers it held could change everything. Meanwhile, Earth's forces remained vigilant, ready to defend against any further threats, whether from the Zetans or from the still cryptic intentions of the ancient artifact itself. The immediate threat from the Zetan rogue faction had been neutralized, but the situation on the moon remained fraught with danger. As Admiral John Harrow coordinated Earth's forces to maintain a defensive perimeter around Lunar Site Delta, Dr. Elliot Reed and his team worked feverishly to understand the enigmatic artifact now partially unearthed from the moon's dusty surface. The artifact, a colossal structure made of an unknown metal, had begun to emit a low hum that gradually evolved into a complex series of sounds. Dr. Reed hypothesized that these were not random emissions, but possibly a form of communication or activation sequence. "It's like nothing we've ever seen," Reed explained over the secure channel to Harrow. "The patterns are too systematic, too intentional. It's broadcasting something." Admiral Harrow watched the data feeds closely. The artifact's signals were not only intensifying, but also beginning to resonate with a series of deep space satellites, creating a network of transmissions that could be felt across human-controlled space. Could this be a beacon? Harrow mused, concerned about the potential for it to attract unwanted attention from other, perhaps even more hostile alien races. The global scientific community, linked remotely to the site's data, worked in concert to decode the broadcasts. Meanwhile, the military prepared for any scenario, from a potential zetan counterattack to the arrival of an entirely new extraterrestrial threat. The artifact, for all its mystery, was quickly becoming a crucible for Earth's united defensive capabilities. As the analysis continued, an alarming development occurred. The artifact began to change shape. The geometric patterns on its surface shifted, revealing new forms and structures. It was self-altering, reconfiguring itself in real time. "It's preparing to do something," Dr. Reed observed, his voice tense with both awe and apprehension. "We might be on the verge of witnessing its actual function." The transformations escalated quickly, culminating in the artifact opening like a flower to the sun, exposing a core that glowed with an intense light. From this core, a beam shot upwards, piercing the sky and reaching into the depths of space. This action confirmed one of the team's worst fears. The artifact was not just a relic, it was a beacon, now fully activated. Admiral Harrow responded swiftly. "All units, be on high alert. We don't know what's coming our way, but we must be ready for anything." Earth's spaceborne defenses were put on the highest readiness, and messages were sent back home, preparing for a possible interstellar encounter. Simultaneously, Dr. Reed's team scrambled to find a way to deactivate or control the artifact. The beacon's beam, continuous and powerful, suggested it was a signal to something, or someone, far beyond the known galaxy. "If we can't turn it off," Reed posited, "perhaps we can redirect it, or even use it to send a message of our own." The team devised a risky plan to interface with the artifact using a combination of human and zetan technology. This hybrid approach was untested, but represented the best chance of gaining control over the beacon. As they implemented the setup, the tension was palpable. Every team member knew the gravity of their task. Meanwhile, across human territories, preparations were made for potential responses to the beacon's call. From diplomatic measures to enhance Earth's alliances with neighboring systems to military drills for repelling invasions, humanity braced for whatever might come next. As the beam continued to pulse into the cosmos, Admiral Harrow remained steadfast on the lunar surface, overseeing operations. His leadership, once focused solely on safeguarding human interests, was now pivotal in a scenario that could affect the entire galaxy. "Stay the course," he instructed his team. "We're not just defending Earth anymore, we're standing guard for all of humanity." The beam from the alien artifact continued its relentless pulse into the cosmos, unyielding and bright against the lunar landscape. As Earth's teams worked under Admiral John Harrow's watchful command, Dr. Elliot Reed's plan to interface with the artifact finally began to take shape. In the makeshift lab established a safe distance from the artifact, Dr. Reed and his team, composed of the finest minds from both human and zetan technology sectors, worked around the clock. They constructed an interface, a complex array of devices and computers, designed to mimic the artifact's energy patterns in hopes of communicating or even controlling it. As the interface powered up, a sudden shift occurred. The artifact's beam flickered, then adjusted its trajectory slightly, as if responding to the presence of the new technology. "It's reacting to us," Dr. Reed announced, tension lacing his voice. "Either we're getting through to it or we're provoking it. We need to be extremely careful with every adjustment." Back on Earth, the global defense networks remained on high alert. Reports of unusual astronomical phenomena started to come in from observatories around the world. Stars seeming to flicker and shift, a possible side effect of the artifact's powerful emissions disrupting the fabric of space. Admiral Harrow, overseeing the operation from the command center, received continuous updates. The situation was precarious, and the stakes were unprecedented. "Keep pushing for control, but prepare for contingency measures," he ordered. "We might need to evacuate if this escalates beyond our control." The team's efforts at interfacing with the artifact began to show promising results. The beam's intensity fluctuated in patterns that mirrored the inputs from the interface. It was a complex dialogue, with humanity speaking through pulses of energy to a machine of unknown origin and intent. However, as progress was made on the moon, a new threat emerged. The beacon signal had reached far into space, and now, something was responding. Distant sensors picked up an incoming object, fast, massive, and headed straight for the solar system. "We've called something here," Harrow realized, a note of dread in his voice. "Whatever it is, it's coming fast. Prepare all defensive systems and alert the United Nations Space Command. We may have just started an interstellar incident." With Earth potentially in the path of an unknown interstellar entity, the urgency increased tenfold. Dr. Reed and his team redoubled their efforts, knowing that gaining control over the artifact might be the only way to prevent a catastrophe. In a high-stakes operation, Dr. Reed decided to attempt a full synchronization with the artifact. This risky maneuver involved aligning the interface's energy output precisely with the artifact's beam, in hopes of either shutting it down or repurposing its signal to something benign. The synchronization began, and for a moment all was still. Then, the artifact vibrated intensely, emitting a shockwave that rippled across the moon's surface. The team staggered, equipment rattled, but the beam abruptly ceased. Silence fell over the site. Then, monitors confirmed it. The beam was off. The incoming object in space slowed, then altered its course, veering away from Earth. It was a moment of immense relief mixed with disbelief. They had done it. They had averted a potential disaster. Admiral Harrow, allowing himself a brief smile, immediately shifted to logistics. Secure the site, and let's get our findings back to Earth. We need to understand exactly what happened here and how we can use this knowledge for future encounters. The artifact, now dormant, was a mystery unlocked in part, promising new technologies and insights. Yet, the brief interaction with whatever had been coming their way was a stark reminder of the vast, uncharted expanse of the universe that lay beyond Earth's reach, filled with unknowns yet to be explored, or perhaps confronted. Following the tense standoff and the miraculous deactivation of the artifact's beam, a palpable sense of relief washed over the team on the lunar surface. Yet, Admiral John Harrow was acutely aware that the silence could be fleeting. The artifact, although dormant, was still a source of profound mystery and potential danger. Its brief activation had altered human understanding of their place in the cosmos, and the looming presence of an unidentified alien entity only underscored their vulnerability. As the Earth's defense system stood down and the unidentified object retreated into the depths of space, the international community began to breathe easier. But for Harrow and Dr. Elliot Reed, the mission was far from over. They now faced the task of ensuring that the artifact did not become a beacon of threat once again. Reed proposed a bold plan: to permanently disable the artifact using a high-energy pulse generated by the same interface that had managed to communicate with it. This pulse would effectively fry the artifact's internal mechanisms, rendering it inert. The plan, however, came with substantial risks. There was no precedent for the technology, and the repercussions of tampering with such advanced alien machinery were unknown. As preparations for the disabling procedure began, Harrow convened his top aides to discuss the broader implications. "What we've stumbled upon here is a game-changer for humanity," he explained. "The technology, the data we've gathered, it could advance our civilization, or it could spell our doom if we're not careful." The plan required someone to manually initiate the pulse from within the artifact's core, a perilous task given the unpredictable nature of the alien technology. Volunteers were called for, and many stepped forward, willing to risk their lives for the greater good. But Harrow, ever the protector, decided to shoulder the burden himself. "This is my responsibility," he declared. "We don't fully understand what we're dealing with. I won't risk lives unnecessarily." With the team's reluctant approval, Harrow suited up for the mission. Equipped with the latest in protective gear and carrying the portable device designed to trigger the pulse, he approached the artifact. The team monitored his progress closely, aware that this could be a one-way mission. Inside the artifact, Harrow navigated through corridors of smooth alien metal, the walls inscribed with symbols that glowed faintly, as if hinting at hidden secrets. Reaching the core, he installed the device, setting it to activate on a delay to give him time to escape. As he retraced his steps, however, the artifact began to react. The walls pulsed with energy, and the path behind him morphed, sealing off his retreat. Harrow realized with a sinking heart that the artifact was not just a machine, but a sentient entity, protecting itself. Outside, Dr. Reed and the team watched in horror as the signals indicated the pathways changing, trapping Harrow inside. "John, you need to get out now," Reed shouted over the comms. But Harrow, calm in the face of his impending fate, responded with a commander's resolve. "Ensure the pulse goes off. That's an order." With no time left and no way out, Harrow activated the pulse manually. The resulting energy surge was immense, flooding the artifact with light and power, and then silence. The monitors went blank, the artifact went dark, and all communication with Harrow ceased. Back on Earth, news of the sacrifice spread quickly. Harrow was hailed as a hero who had ensured humanity's safety at the cost of his own life. His action not only neutralized the immediate threat, but also sent a powerful message across the nations of Earth: the need for unity and vigilance in the face of the unknown. As the team returned to Earth, carrying with them the data and the lessons of the artifact, they knew their world had changed forever. They had glimpsed the broader universe, full of wonders and dangers, and realized the imperative to advance and prepare. Harrow's legacy would be remembered not just for the crisis averted, but for the future he had secured. In the aftermath of Admiral John Harrow's heroic sacrifice, a solemn mood enveloped Earth. News of his final act spread rapidly, uniting the planet in both mourning and deep reflection. Monuments were planned in his honor, and governments declared days of remembrance, recognizing him not only as a military hero, but as a visionary who had dramatically altered humanity's view of its place in the universe. The artifact on the moon lay silent, a dormant relic once again, thanks to Harrow's decisive action. Dr. Elliot Reed and the remaining team were tasked with continuing the research, under strict protocols to prevent any further activation. The site became a restricted zone, heavily monitored, both a tomb and a treasury of potentially revolutionary knowledge. In scientific communities and among the general populace, discussions about the artifact sparked a renewed interest in space exploration and the possibilities of advanced alien technologies. Universities expanded their programs to include xenoarchaeology and interstellar communications, inspired by the mysteries Harrow and his team had encountered. Meanwhile, the international coalition that had formed in response to the crisis solidified into a more permanent organization. This new body, the United Earth Space Command, aimed to prepare for future extraterrestrial encounters and to ensure that the world would never again be caught off guard. Harrow's foresight in fostering cooperation among nations and species became a cornerstone of this organization's ethos. On a more personal level, Admiral Harrow's family and close colleagues dealt with their grief by committing to continue his legacy. Scholarships and research grants were established in his name, focusing on peace and security in space affairs. His personal notes and journals, filled with reflections on diplomacy, strategy, and human potential, were published, becoming bestsellers and inspiring a new generation of leaders. Back on the moon, the final reports from the site were bittersweet. The artifact had indeed been neutralized, but the data gathered offered a glimpse into technologies far beyond current human capabilities. Theories abounded about the creators of the artifact. Were they guardians, warning against the dangers of the cosmos? Or were they heralds of deeper cosmic mysteries yet to be explored? As humanity moved forward, it did so with a greater sense of unity and purpose. The existential threat had sparked a global renaissance in science, defense, and diplomacy, profoundly shifting the geopolitical landscape. The world's nations now looked to the stars not as distant, unattainable mysteries, but as realms of infinite possibility and shared destiny. At the United Nations Space Command, a new statue of Admiral Harrow stood at the entrance, gazing up at the sky. The inscription beneath it read, "In sacrifice, we find our purpose. In the stars, our destiny." This symbol served as a daily reminder to all who passed by of the cost of safety and the value of courage. Harrow's legacy, thus, was not just in the preservation of life on Earth, but in the awakening of a collective, outward gaze towards the vast universe. Humanity, once divided by petty squabbles and terrestrial concerns, now stood united, a community ready to face whatever challenges might come from the unknown reaches of space, forever changed by the admiral who had dared to face the unknown for the sake of all.